I think a natural progression now is on to Three's robins, and I know Three's from Brussels and her good work at BirdLife Europe, and I think it leads naturally into the CAP reform and how the organic sector can slot into that in terms of sustainability and quality. Three's.
Good afternoon. I will also try my best to give a short presentation of a long and very filled workshop. So here we go. So my part is on the future of the CAP and which role organic farming can play within it and how exactly organic farming should feature in the new CAP. So I don't know. Okay. Yeah. So nope. Yeah. So starting just to give you a quick overview, so there were 5 speakers. I will just quickly run through all of them so you can also identify them later in case you would like to ask them more specific questions for the people who didn't have the possibility of attending this session. So the first one was Ms. Luck, who from the Estonian University of Life Science, who did a specific presentation on environmental challenges and best practices for organic farming with a specific concentration on the Baltic Sea. Second one was Mr. Trian Tafalidis from the IFOAM EU group, who voiced the opinion and the key demands of the organic farming sector for the new CAP. Third one was Mr. Ferret, who gave, from his specific perspective of ARC 2020 and all the work he's been doing from the civil society, how exactly civil society can play a role in boosting rural areas, but also for the future of the CAP. The fourth one was Ms. Beuze from the European Commission, from DG Environment, on the biodiversity targets and the links to agriculture. And the last one was Mr. Labarthe on specifically on geographical indications and quality schemes. So I divide the presentation quickly into 3 main points. First of all are the challenges. So we saw a couple of specific presentations, for example, on the Baltic Sea and eutrophication, in which you see that more than half of the pollution in the Baltic Sea comes from agriculture, which is a lot, I would say. There has been a solution, actually, which has been proposed specifically by Ms. Luck through her one of the projects, an Interreg project. And the main message I took away from it was we can clean the Baltic Sea by eating organic food, and this has been done by a bottom-up approach through this Interreg project that has joined a lot of different countries around the Baltic Sea and people to really convert to organic, which could, as a solution, and the role of organic farming in this really have a very big effect on the pollution in the Baltic Sea. It could be reduced by half if there would be a lot of conversion to organic farming around the Baltic Sea. A second one is the problem of biodiversity loss, which was voiced by the madam from the Commission, who explained the biodiversity strategy and how exactly the DG Environment is trying to work to integrate this biodiversity strategy through an integrated approach through all the different policies. Something which came back was that she, coming from DG Environment, had only a limited capacity of changing things. You have to really work through integration of strategies like the biodiversity strategy in different types of policies. And again, the role of organic farming can play a role, although it was not mentioned specifically in the biodiversity strategy. The many public goods and services which have been stressed in this biodiversity strategy are obviously very important, and organic farming delivers those good practices and delivers those solutions, so it really has a role to play also for something like limiting biodiversity loss. Additional environmental challenges which were raised during the discussion, issues on soil, on oil dependency, on climate change, but they were not discussed specifically by the speakers, so I'm sure everybody knows what I'm talking about. Further challenges are questions around the concept of competitiveness, which was very much mentioned in the session, and there was a very funny joke which I will have to ask later to the person to tell again, but that's maybe for after the session, on who loses out between the Trabant, the Porsche and the Mercedes, and at what cost, if they're all competing against each other. So I leave that for the person afterwards to explain. And also another challenge was around food quality and what exactly does food quality mean. Yes. In terms of concrete proposals for organic farming in the new CAP, We got a full presentation on that, and the main points that I picked out from that one is that, first of all, organic farming should get much more of references throughout the whole of the CAP. It should be referenced as a specific system approach. The second point, there should be clear greening of the first pillar, but it's important to mention that this should happen without losing the value, the significance, and the targeting of the second pillar. Capping, which also has been mentioned by my colleague before, and then in the second pillar, some specific points for improvements are higher rates of co-financing for some agro-environmental schemes which are giving much more public goods and services. Mandatory schemes for system approaches such as organic farming, so because now it was highlighted that it is not mandatory, so it's very diverse throughout Europe, the picking up of these of organic farming as a mandatory scheme. And all measures should support sustainability and not just certain ones of them. So we should ensure that all measures within the second pillar and within the first pillar, obviously, should support sustainability. And finally, on food quality should be another very important focus point. It should try to also adopt environmental aspects. And finally, there was a lot mentioned also on certification, the role of certification, the difficulties around it. So also this should be focused on. And then finally, how can we get all these proposals to become reality? We learned from Samuel that there are many more organizations and people involved than ever before in a reform like the one of the Common Agricultural Policy. I think seeing all of you here shows how much interest there is. The Commission is at the heart of the discussions because they have the right of initiative. So this means that if we want to change something, the first thing that we should do is really try to make a policy like the Common Agricultural Policy, which is very technical already, much more closer, simpler, and try to bring it closer to the people. For all those like technical people, you should try to really translate it in our own words, make it much more popular, much more understandable. So what can you then do? You can talk to your government, try to influence the governments on agriculture and environmental in your member states to ensure that they take up your points of interest. You can talk to your members of parliament who can all ask questions to the Commission, to the member states. They have a real influence. They have co-decision now. This means that you can push them, you can make a difference there. And finally, you should try to bring the message that you really care about to everybody to ensure that many more people get involved in this. So I think the message from this one is if we cooperate instead of compete, we will reach better results. Thank you.